In this video, we're going to take a look at the left and the convert functions. If I switch back to Azure Data Studio, I might want to do something where I return the initials as part of my query. In order to do that, I can use the left function to perform that particular goal. The left function is going to basically take some type of a string. Starting at the left of the string, it's going to return the number of character positions that you indicate. So if I come in here and I put in a left with the first name, it's going to return to me the number of character positions. If I say 1, it's just going to return the very first letter of that first name field. I can go ahead then and concatenate to that the left of the last name, indicating 1 character position. And then I can go ahead and alias this as initials. When I run this, I can see that it has gone ahead and returned the very first character position of the first name, the first character position of the last name. Now, if we switch to Oracle SQL Developer, we want to do somewhat of the same thing. However, the left function does not exist in Oracle. We have to use another function, which is the substring, to actually perform that same action. For the substring function, I need to specify the string that I want to work on. I need to specify the beginning location within that string, and then the length of the string that I want to return. So it's essentially returning to me a substring of an existing string. If I start here, I can type in SUBSTR, so that's substring. I can specify my cust first name, indicate a starting position of 1 in that string. That's going to take it to the very left of the string at the first position, and then I'm going to give it a length of 1. Now the concatenation operator is the double pipe. Then I can go ahead and substring the cust last name, starting with 1 for a length of 1, and then alias this out as initials in my query. Once I run that, I see that I have pretty much performed the exact same equivalent to that left function that we saw in SQL Server. The next function that we want to take a look at is the convert function. Switching back to Azure Data Studio, we might want to convert from one type to another, and we can use the convert to do this. If we happen to have a float type, a column that is considered a float, or some type of literal, numeric literal that we have, we can convert that particular type that we have into another type. We can specify in our select statement the convert function, specify the type that we want to convert it to. In our case, maybe we have an int. In this case, we're just going to use something like a float literal, maybe something like 1234.56. Now remember, I don't need a from here, and I can just go ahead and run this. This is going to then convert that to an integer type. Notice that I no longer have that 0.56 there. I can also do this with dates. Maybe we have a string literal that is a date format that we want to convert into a date time field. So I can do convert, and in this case, date time. I need to specify what my string literal might be. Now this is going to be 1252024. But when I get to this, I need to specify a style. If I look on the W3 site, I can see that there is a whole slew of different formats. If my input is in the month/day/YY format, I need to specify 101 as my style format. Now, obviously, you're going to have like a couple of these that you use that you might kind of memorize, but you can always refer back to the reference for this information as well. If I go back to Azure Data Studio, I would go through and just specify that 101 as my argument there. Then I could run my particular command. We can see here that it is returning a date time. We didn't specify a time component, so it's defaulting it to 00000000. Now, if I had something where I wanted to go ahead and maybe concatenate a few things together in a string, like a numeric field with a string field, I can do that, but I need to use the convert. We'll try it without, see what it looks like, and then we'll go ahead and then add it, correct it, so that we can actually run it. To do this, we're going to go ahead and use that products table. Maybe we have a product name. We want to return its unit price. While we do this, we're going to also incorporate how we can deal with using an embedded quote within a string. So if we're trying to concatenate a string that has a quote, we can use a certain number of quotes to escape it so that we can then go ahead and print that out. If we come in here and we decide that we are going to select our product name, to this we want to go ahead and add an apostrophe S, and then cost is, I can do something where I start my string, but I need to have an embedded quote. In order to do that, I have to specify two quotes. The one quote is going to escape that quote. Then I can go ahead and specify my S. The two quotes here are going to allow me to print out one quote. Then I can go ahead and type in my cost is and put that ending quote there, followed by my plus sign. Maybe I want to put a space here as well. Then I can go ahead and put my unit price and then specify this as my product text. I'm going to specify this is from my dbo.products table. Now when I run this, I might expect that it's just going to do that translation, but it's telling me that it cannot convert care value to money. Okay, so it's just kind of not really understanding what we need to do. Anytime that we have some type of numeric value, so type that's specified, we want to concatenate it out and print it as a string, we have to do that convert. We could go ahead and say convert varchar on our unit price. Once we do that, we can run it, and we can see that we have our single quote because we had those two quotes that we put in that expression. Then we had our convert that's going to take that unit price and convert it to a varchar so that we can concatenate that to our other string. Now, if we go ahead and switch to SQL Developer, within Oracle, we do not have one function. We have three. If we want to convert something to a character type, then we would use the toChar function. If we want to convert something to a number type, then we would use the toNumber function. If we wanted to convert something to a date type, then we would go ahead and use the toDate function. Now, when we start with some of these examples, recall that we don't have select statement that we can just run. If we want to run a simple type of statement that's going to just use some type of string literal to convert it to maybe a date time type or something like that, I can use a table that they have defined in the database for us, since we don't necessarily have a table to use to specify in our query. With Oracle, we have a requirement that we have to indicate some type of table in that query. This table is the dual table. It doesn't require any type of schema because it just is kind of a global table that's available. If we go ahead and we run this, we can see what that table looks like. The DESC is a describe function that's basically going to describe the table that we specify. In this case, the table that we're specifying is the dual table. We can tell that it is a table that has one field in it. That field is a dummy field, and it is one character in length. This is the table that we typically use to handle situations where we want to execute something and we don't have really a table that we want to tie it to. Now, in my query, if I'm going to do this, I want to start with doing something like converting a string value to a number. So I can do a select to number. This is my function. I'm going to specify that string value that I want to convert. Maybe it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can specify this from dual. When I execute this, it's going to return to me that number. I can tell it's a number because it is right aligned. Now, if we have a numeric literal that we want to convert to a character, we can just do select to char, specifying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from dual. Execute this. We can see now that it is right aligned. This has converted it to a string value. Now, when we get into dealing with dates, that gets a little bit trickier. We need to be able to understand some of the date formats that are available within Oracle. If we go to one of the Oracle sites that has some information here about the date formats, we should essentially be able to see that we can specify the YYYY format as a 4-digit year. If we look at different representations down here, a capital DD is going to be the date where we have a leading 0 on our date, and we have our month. If we specify it with MM, it's going to provide that leading 0 as well. If we wanted to remove the leading 0, we would use a BD and a BM. We're going to keep it very simple. We're essentially going to use this particular format, but we're going to use that 4-digit year. When I switch back to SQL Developer, I can then go ahead and say I first want to start by converting to a string the current date. We'll take a look in more detail on the current date functions in the next video, but I can go ahead and do a select. In this case, I want to do a to char, specify my date. This is going to be sysdate. That's the current date, the system's date. Now I can go ahead and specify that format. This is going to be in the capital MM. I want the 2-digit with the leading 0. I want the DD. I also want the 2-digit with the leading 0. And then I want the 4-digit year. I can say from dual. When I execute this, it's going to change it up. So it's grabbing the current date from sysdate and formatting it in the date format that I specified and returning it as a string because we can see that it is left aligned. Now, if I go ahead and I decide that I want to do the opposite and I have a string value that I want to convert to a date, I can do a to date. I'm going to specify that string value. So if I had something and I want to make sure that it's not the current date, I'm going to do something like yesterday's date. I can put in the 24th, 2024. I need to specify the format, and this is going to be mm/day/YYYY. I can specify that as from dual. When I execute this, it's going to show me the output from that query, which is a date time format. The format that we entered is obviously not the format that it's printing out at this point. Now, the last thing that we want to take a look at is we want to kind of do something similar where we are trying to concatenate some type of numeric field to a string value. We did that in the last exercise on SQL Server side. We're just going to go ahead and copy this query down here. I'm going to modify it slightly. When I am looking at this, maybe I want to have the customer's first name with their credit limit printed out from that SH customer. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove some of this. I want to keep my credit limit, and I want to go ahead and remove the rest of it. So I'm going to get rid of that ending comma on the credit limit. I want to go ahead here and I just want to make it that customer's first name. I want to also have it print out a quote and say their credit limit, similar to what we did before. Again, with Oracle, we need to go ahead and within a string specify 2 quotes to be able to escape that single quote so we can print it out. I'm going to go ahead and say credit limit. Just going to put in a colon here with a space, and then concatenate that particular cost credit limit. Now, if this was in SQL Server, it wouldn't work. Let's see if it works in Oracle. So if I go ahead and select this, see, it does work. It is doing that transformation for us, and it's just working.